Thank you very much. A couple of questions came up, a lot of them related to the idea of a new Marshall Plan going into the future. So let me tackle that one from a couple of different dimensions at first. Exactly how we do it, I don't have a plan or a straightforward suggestion on that. But I do think where it starts is largely with the countries that are part of the OECD and also part of the OSCE. And I think it's looking around the table and developing a spirit of, and this isn't going to be easy, but a spirit of common purpose in which everybody reaches deep inside and says, even though we're having to do so much to take care of the people in our own countries right now, is there a way in which we can contribute to a worldwide effort to provide relief? And when I first referenced about a month ago, the notion of an aspirational vision of taking George Marshall's quote and substituting in we the world for the United States, saying it's that I was focusing a lot on, to follow to the question that got raised about development. I have responsibility for the development cluster at OECD, which includes the development center that includes both OECD members and non-members, the development cooperation directorate, which works for the DAC, basically the donor countries, and also the SWAC, the Sahel West Africa Club, that looks at a lot of issues in Africa. And this was born out of as I started to look at how this was unfolding and said, okay, whether you like them or not, the United States, the UK, France, Germany, all sorts of people can put border controls in, at least stop cross-border. That's not even a real option for most African countries to be able to do border control. But also because of their fragile healthcare systems, it's going to be a huge challenge, like nothing we've ever seen before in Africa. And so sort of the prescription I've been trying to push there is as we deal with our own stuff, let's try and look forward. So at the OECD, we're about to, for the first time, actually have a policy paper that just sort of looks forward at what the challenges are going to be and some possible options to address them. That's been put together by the development cluster as a whole, is a common starting place for that discussion. So we're hoping we'll have that out in the next week or so. And I'll jump to that, to the globalization question that the president sort of put in particular. I think everybody, when they think globalization, thinks a lot the US, China, again, off again, I don't know where that's going to go. I do know what I sense in the background from the I talked to is that in terms of unity, that we're seeing a lot more unity among the G7 countries, and I'll throw the European Union into that, particularly in dealing with some of the trade issues, some of the medical relief issues, supplies issues, things of that nature. So I think this is an opportunity to show that globalization can work, but at the same time, we need to be very careful that we allow individual countries to maintain their personal identities, their cultures to a large degree, and we unite around what we have in common as opposed to what can divide us. And I think one of the biggest risks here is the what I'm going to call political risk. I remember prior President of the United States Chief of Staff once saying, when he was looking to spend lots of money on pet projects during the Great Recession, the financial collapse, he says, well, you never let a good crisis go to waste. And I think that as parliamentarians, having worked in Congress through this time, one of my big things is to avoid the temptation to see this as an opportunity to push initiatives or objectives of one kind or another that have nothing in reality to do with helping the world from a health perspective or an economic perspective, throw it off track. And I think that's really important. And that's where part of what I mean is getting it right in terms of ensuring political stability. That move forward, and how we stay united and stable and don't inadvertently create additional upheaval. And lastly, and then I'll be quiet, is, or actually not lastly, two more things. The corruption issue is extraordinarily important here. The OECD, along with the European Union, recently put out a paper related from our illicit or task force on illicit trade, where we look specifically at pharmaceuticals. Counterfeit pharmaceuticals, particularly at this time when lots of people are very desperate, are an even greater danger than they normally are. And I think that's something we need to focus in that particular area. But I think corruption, I look at how much money's been thrown out by the US, appropriated by Congress just over the last couple of weeks. And I'm saying, hey, wait a minute, if I adjust for inflation in the last 3 weeks, we've spent in direct spending more than the entire budget was in fiscal year 2002 in the United States after adjusting for inflation. And that's pretty remarkable. And as we all know, criminals follow the money. They're going to go where the money is. And so I think that's where maintaining a focus on dealing with corruption is going to be a key element of maintaining trust from citizens. And lastly, the question on SMEs, grants or loans. I don't know the answer to that. We do have on our OECD website a recent policy paper. If you just go to oecd.org and scroll across the policy arenas, you'll see one specifically related to small and medium enterprises that so far. My general notion is there's not a one-size-fits-all answer. For some countries, it's one will be better. For other countries, it'll be grants. I mean, for instance, in the U.S., we've had for a long time a generally successful small business administration. Not every country has that. So the answer for the U.S. might be very different from the answer in Canada or Georgia or other places. So I hope that answers the questions folks were asking.